Good evening. Horror and chaos be to you in the name of Runie Roos. Now, lunatics, so welcome one another as I shall welcome you. Hi. Hello. I'm here in the future from the past. As you guys know, I am on holiday right now, but I wanted to go ahead and prepare this stream in case you guys missed me too much to possibly go on. So I hope that you will enjoy what I have prepared for you guys today. We've gone back out camping. Ooh, spooky. And I have here a nice little drink, and there's definitely not rum in this. There's definitely not spiced rum in this. It's just regular coffee and or hot chocolate, your preference. Also of important note is that I am using a new audio interface for this. So if the sound sounds different, that might be why. Hopefully it sounds better. I think it's sounding a good bit better than my old setup. So hopefully you also enjoy it. This would be an extra nice stream to have sound nice because today we'll tell scary ghost stories and tales of the glories of Christmases long, long ago. Yeah, we're gonna tell some scary stories. Now, I don't know how historically Christmas and scary stories got linked, but somehow they are. And so I thought, you know what? What a perfect time to revisit the ghost stories that you guys submitted to me back in Halloween and do some reading for you. And I also thought this would be a nice stream for one where I'm not actually live, that's pre-recorded, right? Because, the meat, the butter of the stream is less interactive than a lot of my other streams are, which means that I think it should still be pretty high value, even without being live streamed. I hope I'm correct. I really hope nobody is disappointed by this decision. But I will be going through the 22 submissions that we did not get to during my Halloween Roostober stream for the ghost stories. So let's not waste any time. We're here with story number 23. This was submitted by Alan Smithy. I felt like I was going to die. My heart, full of anticipation, ran marathons in my chest. My palms, likewise, sweated wisps of panic in the air. Today is Valentine's Day. I got someone to meet. Love is often spontaneous, but I prepared for everything. I had to. As I walked to our meeting spot, trying to settle my nerves, I gazed up at the sky. A great scarlet horizon illuminated an idyllic evening. Perfect. Taking a deep breath, I spotted her. She was spreading out a towel, wearing a loose one-piece t-shirt and ripped jeans, her eyes fixed on the sky. I'm suspicious. Where is this going? She liked stargazing. I approached quietly, a surprise behind my back. In a quick, almost primal burst of energy, I struck the back of her head. Oh, wait, what? She died instantly. Mortified, he gazed at his hand. In it held a crude, bloodied stone rather than a ring. I urgently left his body to track her spirit. What? I was described as everything from a cupid to a devil, a ghost to a spirit, a yokai to a shade. Yo, this was even before my phasmophobia days. That didn't matter to me. I could now meet her. The sky returned to an eerie black. Okay, wow! Snaps. That was crazy. Actually, I feel like I went through a whole roller coaster of emotions there. What the heck? It started off so cute. I think it is a trope that you see kind of often, but you see it often because it's effective, of this idea of something taking over your body and forcing you to do something violent towards the people that you love. It's a very, very scary thought to hurt people without your control, right? Especially people that you love. This was spooky and also a little funny. Good mixture of fun and humor and horror. So thank you very much for your submission. Thank you. Hold on, I have my headphones. I don't know why I put on headphones for this. I don't need headphones. Get these out of here. Get these headphones out of here. Hold on. Can you guys hear me struggling? I have like a headphone hook. Why is it not wanting to go on the hook here? Whatever. I'm just gonna drop them to the floor. Yeah, I'm just gonna drop them to the floor like a cool kid. Alright, next up. Submitted by Anne Given. Ooh. And then I knocked over my mic. Wow, this stream is going really well. By stream, I mean pre-recorded recording. It's going really, really well. Okay. Okay. From Anne Given. On to Given. The Bell Ringer. In my city, there's an old medieval church famous for its tall wooden bell tower. Today it's a popular tourist attraction, as the tower provides a great view over the city. However, few today are aware of the ghost who haunts the church and its bell tower. During World War II, at noon when the church bells rang, German bombs fell overhead. Several fires broke out, spreading quickly throughout the city, soon reaching the wooden bell tower, engulfing it in flames. Eyewitnesses below spotted a man on top of the church. It was the church's bell ringer who was still in the tower when the bombs fell. Trapped with nowhere left to go, he stayed up there reciting the Bible until disappearing in the flames. After the war, the church was restored, begging the strange and unexplainable. Constant problem with the bells, its ropes wearing out frequently or snapping, Willie getting rang. The strange smell of smoke and sightings of a charred, ghostly man lurking around the church premises. The strange and the unexplainable would peak in the mid-60s after one visitor who climbed to the top of the bell tower plummeted to their death. Oh my gosh. The incident freaked churchgoers so much that many stopped coming. The current bell ringers refused to attend to their duties, calling the tower unsafe. Several priests and nuns were even so spooked by the whole thing that they would faint while being at or near the church. However, in time, the whole thing would eventually die down. Many of the strange and unexplainable would stop and be forgotten. Eventually, the tower was reopened to the public, everything becoming a distant memory. The church every year on the day the old bell ringer died holds a special seminar dedicated to the man on the day of his death, which the head priest attributes to the decrease in the supernatural. Wait, is that a true story? It sounds so true. It sounds so real. Wow, that's so spooky. It sounds real because it's also like very tragic. Real life is so tragic. What the heck? Thank you very much for their submission. Thank you. Next. Oh, this is another one. Another one from Anne Given. The Baron and his Manor. In the middle of a small wooded area lies an old abandoned manor. Several hundred years ago, a wealthy baron and his family called it home. The baron, Henry, his wife, Eleanor, their son, Richard, and their many servants. Henry was a violent, abusive man. He would repeatedly punish and beat his servants, even for the smallest of mistakes. Whenever Henry attended social gatherings, he would bring Eleanor along. During these parties, Henry, in front of his distinguished friends, would ridicule and humiliate Eleanor in order to make them laugh. Even his son Richard was not safe. Richard had trouble learning how to read and write, so whenever Richard's tutor told Henry of his son's slow progress, he would deprive Richard of food for days, causing him to get weak and sickly. Then one day, after Richard once again failed to live up to his father's standards, Henry concluded that Richard can't be his son, since of course, in his mind, he could never father someone like him. Henry would tell Eleanor that he knows everything and that soon he will have her and Richard taken away. What the? Eleanor and the servants, tired of Henry's wrath, would band together. In the dead of night, while Henry was asleep, Eleanor, along with Richard and all the servants, will leave Henry locked in his room. As they all split away, they would set fire to the manor. Henry, awoken by the massive fire, would cry out for his wife, but no one would come and save him, and eventually he would succumb to the flames. The manor was eventually rebuilt, but the manor for the next several hundred years would change hands frequently, as Henry's ghost would forever haunt the manor. Henry's ghost is very aggressive, known for opening and shutting doors, pulling books out of the shelf, knocking paintings off the walls, breaking coffee cups, and even sometimes in the dead of night, you can hear Henry's ghost screaming. I myself, with a friend, once visited Henry's old abandoned manor. It was a long walk since there are no roads leading up to the manor. The manor is very run down, but since not many people come out and visit the place, it's also hauntingly well preserved with all the last inhabitants' leftover belongings. Whoa. We only lasted several minutes in the manor with the overwhelming feeling of being watched. It took one weird sound to scare us both off. Since that time, I've not gone back. Whoa! That's so creepy. See, this legend seems fake. The other ones seem real. This one seems fake to me because I just feel like that many people can't keep a secret. I mean, I guess they didn't keep the secret actually because we all know about it. But it just seems like all of those people would have gotten caught and punished for killing Henry because people just yap. That many people cannot keep a secret. I guess it doesn't say what happened to them. It's possible they didn't get away with it, and that's why everybody knows. And in which case, it is believable. Very believable now. I like that though. Ooh, that is spooky. And you really went there. That's crazy. You gotta go back. Don't let one weird sound scare you off. Go confront Henry. Tell him he's a poo-poo head. Yeah, tell him I sent you and that he's a poo-poo head. Next up, we have a short submission from 511534. So you're with your honey and you're making out when the phone rings. You answer it and the voice is, "What are you doing with my daughter?" You tell your girl and she say, "My dad is dead." Then who was phone? Yes. Poetry. Next is from Pippi. The Mexican Revolution was winding down to an end as the country had developed into a ramping wave of crime and villainy. At the time, my great-great-grandfather was living in Mexico in the state of Tamaulipas. Being born into an opulent line of landowners and having a hacienda of his own, he had dealt with many rebels that were led by the likes of Pancho Villa himself, or those that were out seeking their fortune out of my great-great-grandfather, whether it be by the end of a blade or gun. But those who tried knew that the man known as Patron Pepe certainly had no qualm serving out his own sense of justice, defending what was rightfully his. The war had ravaged the land and stirred the peasants into such a whirlwind that it was a lullaby of horse neighs and gunfire every night. But it was on one such faithful evening that my great-great-grandfather had received a knocking on the heavy doors of his decadent home. Gun in hand, he had called out for whomever it was to go away, but to his shock, it was a woman that cried out in reply. She pleaded for the patron to take them in, for her love had been shot in the fighting that was taking place on top of the ridge over yonder. Pepe was a God-fearing man, but he knew that if he took them in, that it would only lead to the fighting creeping ever closer to his doors. He shouts one more for them to go away, and then washed his hands of their plight. The sounds of gunfire had died down, but it wasn't long before the patron heard his stables roar with neighs once more. The patron knew that it was the woman's doing that his horses were restless. The woman and her lover had raided the stables and freed all of the horses, bolting out towards the horizon, hoping to reach help elsewhere. But it didn't take long before the patron had caught up to them with a posse of his own. The punishment for horse thievery was a simple hanging, but blinded by anger, believing the woman had tricked him, the patron lashed the man and woman to the very saddles they stole and tied ropes around their necks, tied to the branch of a tall old mesquite tree. There he left them for the night, planning to return in the morning for his horses. But before he left the ghastly sight of these poor unfortunate souls, he heard the woman eke out a curse. The bruja, the witch, cursed the patron's land and home, cursing that she and her lover will forever haunt him and his children if their bodies were left to rot on those very plains. The war ended, and it was not long before my great-great-grandfather fled to Texas. No one ever got the full story as to why. Bits and pieces here and there. Some were told that it was because of Pancho Villa, and the Norteños, the rebels in the mountain that had made him run. Fewer still were told of ghosts, of bandit lovers who roamed outside of our old home, wailing, running the cattle off and chasing the little ones inside. Time faded the memories well enough that the full story died, and those who lived it. But to this day, my family doesn't believe me when I tell them I hear hoofbeats outside my window. Wow, that was really good. Whoa, way to paint a picture. That was awesome, Pippi. Thank you. I saw everything so vividly. Ooh. Oh my gosh, Pippi, you're cursed. You're cursed. That's wonderful. Oh, to be cursed. Next up, we have one from Gosh Darn It Kyle. Nothing is ever really as it seems. I've lived in this home for 10 years now. It has a wonderful and spacious office where I can do all the work I need. I'm a writer, you see, so the peace and quiet that the office provides is essential to my output. One thing has always bugged me though, the door. Not just any door, it's a door that, according to the previous owner, leads nowhere. I don't think much of it, but some nights when I'm up late working, I can hear noises. Simple knocks to loud banging, like there is something on the other side. Usually, I chalk it up to the delusions of a sleep-deprived creative mind, but tonight is different. It started, as it always does, simple knocks, but they became louder and louder as time went on. Then I heard what sounded like people clamoring about, almost like there was a party through that damned door. I couldn't take it anymore. I got up from my desk and walked to the door. My heart was pounding as I reached towards the doorknob. What was on the other side? Was it really nothing? These questions kept repeating in my head. I turned to the doorknob and thought to myself, this is the last chance I have to ignore it and get back to work. I opened the door, and what I saw was bewildering. There was indeed a party, a lavish one even. Gowns and suits, waiters and entertainment, a ballroom. How is this possible? I asked myself. I stepped through and paused a moment. No one seemed to notice I came in, so I shouted, "Where am I?" No response. Perhaps I wasn't loud enough. "Where am I?" No response. I just wanted to know what this mystery world was, but no one seemed to notice me. I see a young couple dancing nearby and approach them. I notice as I get closer, the young girl seems to shiver like a cold chill. Excuse me," I say, trying to get their attention. No response. How odd. I see a plate of food on the table nearby. Maybe I can knock it off. Surely that will get somebody's attention. I go to pick up the plate, and to my amazement, my hand goes right through it, like it's not even there. Phasing through, no one can see or hear me? What kind of hell have I wandered into? So many questions that I can't get an answer to. Deciding that this is all too much for me, I turn to go back to the door and get out of here. The door is gone. That's impossible. The only way I had out is gone. The thoughts in my head are racing. I'm trapped. Trapped in a world where no one can see me, no one can hear me. It's as if I exist, but only to myself. I slump down and a note falls out of my pocket. I don't know where it came from, but it's the only thing here I can touch, it seems. I pick it up and read it. You've been dead for 10 years. Wow! Wow! Yikes! Cold chills, cold chills! That's so spooky! Thank you so much, Kyle! I loved that. I don't want to be a ghost. That's the thing that, you guys know I don't believe in ghosts, but I think a big reason I don't believe in ghosts is because, I don't want to be a ghost. That sounds literally awful. I do not want to believe that's a possibility for the end of my life. I would much rather just not exist. I don't want to be a ghost. That's horrific. This story tapped into those fears for me. Alright, let's get to the next one. Number 29. Oh, another one from Anne Given. Okay, we know it's gonna be good. The Wandering Dead. Is this about zombies? I love zombies. Okay. It's not uncommon for grave sites to be reused. Throughout human history, graves and burial sites have always been reused. Even today, there are times when the old is dug up to bury the new. Once visiting my dad's side of the family, we traveled to his home region. In that part of the country, it's said that if you were to desecrate the dead by digging them up, it would pull their soul from the afterlife and bring them back to Earth. They would become ghosts, and in an attempt to return to the afterlife, they would endlessly wander the cemetery looking for the place they were buried, but never finding it. This is exactly what I'm talking about. I do not want to be a ghost. That sounds absolutely miserable. No, thank you. These poor souls, cursed to forever wander, appear and behave differently depending on the life they've lived. Those who lived long lives appear like normal humans, even sometimes showing up during the day with no intention to harm the living, while those who lived a short life would appear horribly disfigured only showing up during the darkest nights with the hope of stealing the body of some living to live the life they never had. One local legend shared by one of my dad's aunts involves a brother and a sister. The two really didn't get along. The sister died young, while the brother lived a long life. When the brother eventually died, his children had his sister's grave dug up, discarding her remains and burying her brother in her place. Why? But why? Why? The ghost of the sister now wanders the cemetery, only appearing at night, looking for someone to possess so she can live again. Until recently, I had forgotten all about those grave ghosts. After a heavy autumn storm, my mother asked me to head to the cemetery and clean up Grandma's and Grandpa's graves from any fallen branches and leaves. While I was raking the leaves, I looked behind myself, spotting an old lady in an old-fashioned mourning dress. She saw me and commented how wonderful it is to see those who still take care of their loved ones even after death. I told her that I agreed, and after looking away for a second and looking back, she was gone. Perhaps she was a ghost. Maybe she was real, or maybe being European, who has been watching every single Runie Roost stream from start to finish all month, has given me super sleep deprivation, causing me to see and hear things that aren't there. No. No, it couldn't possibly be that. No. Or maybe it is. And maybe I don't even feel bad about it because I'm evil. Wait, that caught me off guard again too. Thank you very much for the support. Thank you for watching, even though it's not a good time zone for you. But always remember, we love VOD viewers here. So if it's ever not a good time, you can always just catch it later. And I appreciate that very, 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 very much. All the love to the VOD viewers. Hey, all of you are kind of VOD viewers right now, because this was not live streamed to begin with. But let's pretend that it was live streamed. You, my friends, my dears, my babes, you're all VOD viewers right now. Yeah, the only one who was here live was Corona. Yeah, so I don't know where I was going with that. All right, next. This is from Stygia. Stygia? Stygia? Oh, diary. My Uncle Aaron died, so we buried him. Again. It's such a shame he never stays down there. Uncle Aaron, please, Uncle Aaron, please stay dead. We're so sick of burying. Uncle Aaron is disturbing his own remains. He's taking the afterlife into his own hands. You don't have to disturb his remains. He's doing it on his own. You know what? Shout out. You know what? Let's all cheers. Cheers to Uncle Aaron. Next, from Bob Snob. Writing this in one go to make the deadline. Let's go. My goodness, wait, when was this submitted? On the 15th? Was that the day that they were due? I'm curious because I'm reading these in order. Okay, yes, that would have been, yep, the 15th, the Tuesday after my birthday. So that means that, okay, so let's see, that's 4, so like 14 of you guys. Submitted on the day it was due. You slackers. You adorable little slackers. Alright, written in one go. You made the deadline. I'm finally reading it. Let's go. They say the cave whispers secrets, but I never imagined it would speak my name. A cave that laid far beyond the furthest trail, through the ridges and up a jagged cliff. Local legends say this cave is a portal to another world. Many years ago, there was a homestead that sat close in proximity. A young husband and wife sought to start their lives and raise a family. Though one night, the wife became concerned when her husband was not home. She paced around the small home, praying for his safety. Trying to calm herself, she peered out the window. There, she noticed a faint glow coming from the direction of the cave. She set out towards the light, braving the difficult trek in the dark. She approached the jagged entrance. The light comes from deeper in the cave. Disturbing sounds echoed off the stone walls, yet she braves on. She finally reaches the source of the light, a dim lantern. Her heart sank when she found her husband. His body entwined with a woman she had never met before. This was not what I expected. Overwhelmed by the betrayal, she covers her crying eyes and runs further into the cave, deep into the winding darkness. She stumbles and falls into a cavern. Her body and soul are said to still remain there, seeking to draw men in and seal their souls with her for eternity. Okay. I'm Runie, a recent college graduate. My hair is long and reddish pink. Some say it complements my fiery but kind personality. I'm returning to my small hometown. You're always told a degree is a guarantee you'll get your foot in the door at some company, a pathway to a career. Guess I wasn't so lucky. My city dreams are packed in the back of my car, my whole life shoved into the rear seat of a little sedan. It's a long drive through the mountains, but I make it home before the sun sets. My parents and my 2 childhood friends greet me at the door and help me with my stuff. Virgil, an arrogant and sarcastic type, grumbles under his breath at the amount of stuff there is to carry in. Robert, or Buggy, as we call him, laughs and tells Virgil to lighten up. Yep, they're interacting with each other, Buggy and Virgil. And I'm gonna be normal about it. After the car is unpacked, we catch up. As the sun goes down completely over the mountain, I suddenly think of the cave. Visions of the jagged entrance race through my mind. I can't explain it. I've never even seen it in person, only in stories, though I feel it calling to me. I bring up the legend to Buggy and Virgil. Neither seem to take it seriously. Buggy jokes that I'd be fine since the ghost only wants to snare him in. Virgil just scoffs and calls it a stupid old story to scare kids. I have a desire to go, though. How about we perform a seance? You two aren't scared, are you? I say with a smug tone. The challenge seems to light a fire under both of them. We grab some flashlights and candles. The hike through the ridge and up a jagged cliff is not easy or short. I'm fueled by an unknown source of determination to reach the cave. Virgil and Buggy lag behind. After what feels like hours, I spot the cave. The opening into the earth emanates an intimidating aura. My mind says to turn back, but my body braves on. I enter and gesture for the others to pick up the pace. Virgil berates me for dragging him out there. Buggy is quiet, pale as a clown. It's obvious he's terrified. Aw, Buggy. Stupid idiot baby. I pick a direction and guide the way. The further we walk in the expansive dark void, the more reality seems to warp around us. The walls almost seem to pulsate gently, with a gentle ebb and flow like a calm tide. Shadows seem to appear and vanish. Buggy claims he hears a voice calling his name. Virgil claims it's calling him. All I hear is an eerie silence. Not even cave noises, just nothing. All of this fills me with a fascination I can't describe. Finally, we come to the edge of a chasm. Here, I say. We set up the seance circle and take our places. We light the candles. We close our eyes. Can I just take a moment to say that this is bonkers? Like, that is actually a bonkers thing to do. That's how you're gonna spend your Saturday night? Come on, Runie. Spirit of the cave, I have heeded your call, I say. Suddenly, we hear a distant roar. It rises up from the chasm. Buggy and Virgil jump in terror. I'm composed, feeling emotions I can't easily describe. Anger, sadness, satisfaction, and apathy, all at once. Buggy looks down the chasm to see a terrifying figure rising with a twisted grin on her face. His heart sinks when she comes closer in view. Her hair is long, a beautiful shade of reddish pink. The candles go out, and all is silent. That ghost was playing the long con. Imagine having like a childhood friend and then it turns out that they were just an evil spirit trying to lure you into a cave all this time. Like, that is a long con. Honestly, huge respect for this ghost, man. She knew what she wanted. And she had the patience to get it. Not everybody can do that. Alright. Next is from Not You. It seems we've got a scary little poem here. Poem. We've got a scary little poem here. Poem. We have a scary little poem. We have a scary little poem here. 10 little lunatics exploring a mine. One got a heart attack, and then there were 9. 9 little lunatics rushing to the gate. One ran too slow, and then there were 8. 8 little lunatics praying to heaven. One whispered too loud, and then there were 7. 7 little lunatics hiding behind bricks. One left footprints, and then there were 6. 6 little lunatics going for a dive. A claw snatched one, and then there were 5. 5 little lunatics stumbling on the floor. A foot crushed one, and then there were 4. 4 little lunatics climbing a tree. A shadow flew by, and then there were 3. 3 little lunatics crying in rue. Smelled their fear, and then there were 2. 2 little lunatics running towards the sun. One collapsed their lung, and then there was 1. 1 little lunatic left all alone. The eggs in their stomach hatched. And then there were none. What? I loved that. Did you come up with that? Is that like a template? I've never heard it. If that's a template, I've never heard of it before and I'm obsessed. That is incredible. That was so much fun. Thank you so much for submitting that. Oh my gosh, that was good. I loved that. Thank you. Not you, actually, not you. I'm really stuffy. I don't know if you guys can hear it. I hope it doesn't make my voice sound weird. I'm stuffy because I've been crying. I'm crying because someone stole my wallet. I wish I was lying. I'm not lying. Someone stole my wallet. It's gonna be okay. I'm only going out of town in 2 days. But that's beside the point. We're not here for sob stories. We're here for scare stories. And we have another one from No Accounting for Taste. I've never considered myself especially superstitious. That kind of stuff gets drummed out of you as you get older, especially if you're already a skeptic by nature. Despite that, I will never be the one to outright deny the supernatural. There are too many things we just can't explain, no matter how many years we spend trying to rationalize some of the horrors we experience. This story takes place in the spring of 2012, so some of the details are a bit hazy. Every year, the AP Biology and Anatomy Physiology students were given the option to spend spring break at a nearby island marine institute. It was actually a pretty cool way to spend the week. An isolated location with cool flora and fauna, early morning hikes, and nighttime snorkeling events for the brave. And, of course, that fun, kind of spooky atmosphere that comes from being a bit cut off from the rest of the world. There was, however, one ironclad rule above all the others. When the sun was down, you were either in your cabin or with the group. Absolutely no being out and about solo. They never said why, probably just to keep the students from getting hurt or lost. Of course, most of us broke that rule at some point, but as far as I know, I was the only one to see anything. I don't remember exactly why I left the bonfire that night. It was probably something stupid. Maybe I needed to grab a jacket as the temperature started to drop. What matters is I grabbed a flashlight and waved away offers to accompany me back to my cabin. It took maybe 10 minutes to walk back, grab whatever it was I needed, and start making my way back to the bonfire. I made it maybe halfway-ish when something started prickling that subconscious part of you that makes it feel like you're being watched. Something too minor to consciously notice. Before I had the chance to pick up the pace, I saw something off to the left. It definitely had a physical form, but either my memory fails me now or for some reason I just couldn't make sense of it. Only that the shape was mostly humanoid but seemed off somehow. It was like my eyes recognized the shape, but my brain refused to make sense of the details. The air also felt colder around it, thick with humidity and stale, like trying to breathe through a wet cloth. I'd already decided it was just my paranoid mind playing tricks on me and resumed walking when I heard this awful sound. It wasn't especially loud, but it had that kind of nails on a chalkboard quality that makes your blood run cold and your teeth itch. Glancing back over, the thing had started moving, not with the kind of incorporeal incorporeal grace you'd expect from a spirit or anything, but this lumbering shamble as though it had a limp. Each staggered step brought about that brain-piercing tone of metal scraping glass. Yet, despite breaking branches and trampling bushes as it moved, there were no other sounds, as though that scraping noise silenced everything else in the world. I'd had way more than enough by this point, so I took off as quickly as I could without risking stumbling over something. But if anything, the sound was getting closer and louder. It got hard to breathe. And not just because I was running. It's like the thing's presence was squeezing my lungs and making every gasp a struggle. It was so dark I couldn't even risk glancing behind me to see if it was making distance. I just had to assume it was gaining on me as my vision started to swim and my heart felt like it was going to pop. I couldn't hear anything anymore but that grating noise getting louder and louder. The next thing I knew, I was stumbling into the bonfire's glow, my classmates' voices suddenly filling the night. That should have been a relief, but all I could focus on was filling my screaming lungs and trying to shake off the sensation of fingers around my throat. Looking back, and especially after writing this recollection, this story feels like the sort of thing you convince yourself happened to add some spice to a trip you've taken. I can't honestly say how much is embellished, and I prefer not to think back on how much of it might not be. I do swear this to you all, though. Every once in a while, maybe every few months, I wake up abruptly, sometimes falling out of bed, unable to breathe for what feels like an eternity before a choking fit brings me back. The only scattered bits I can remember after catching my breath are an awful scraping noise and a shambling silhouette that seems to get closer every time I have this nightmare. I'm so sorry, but that was me. Yeah. Reading this, I realized, Noah, that was me. Sorry to alarm you. I was just having a little vacation of my own, and it was just my evil aura. And that scraping noise was my perfectly manicured nails. Scraping against a 3DO mic as I attempted to learn how to do ASMR. Yeah, that's what was going on. So yeah, actually that was me. I'm bad. My bad. I am bad, but also my bad. Yeah, it seems like I really scared you out there. But yeah, that was just me. So don't worry. Don't worry about it. Next, we have a story from Infernal Saxon. And it begins with my favorite way to start a horror story or a ghost story. This is a true story. At the time of this event, I was working second shift, leaving work in the middle of the night. On my way home from work one night, traveling down the highway, I saw what looked like an abnormally large bat flying right across from my headlights. I thought, that's weird, and didn't really think much more on it. The next night, on my way home, that same spot on the highway, I caught sight of something you would see in nightmares. Crossing my headlights was a creature. Pale gray and naught but skin and bones without any fur, running on 4 limbs. It did not look like any deer, elk, bear, or canid I have ever seen. I had a good look for a few seconds as I hit the brakes to try to avoid hitting it. After it jumped well clear the concrete barrier and I was still slowing down, I took a moment to collect myself and then hit the accelerator. Haven't seen the creature since and can only speculate what I had seen. Whoa, you witnessed a cryptid! Wow! Maybe it was just a very sick, weird deer. Is that how it goes? It was just like maybe it was like a weird deer. That's crazy. That would scare me. Good thing you didn't hit it, or maybe not good thing. Maybe you should have hit it. I mean, then we could like do experiments on it or something. Yeah, this is gonna be my advice. If you see a cryptid in the middle of the road, maybe consider hitting it. I don't know. Maybe you can become famous. Maybe they'll name the cryptid after you. That cryptid could be named the Saxon of the highway or something. I don't know. It could be named after you. But you didn't hit it. You slowed down. Well, there's no use ruminating on what's best. Thank you very much for your submission. Next, we have a story from Suominona. I'm really bad at speaking today. Maybe this was not a good day to record this type of video. All right. When I was young, I lived in a house with a large and deep forest behind it. Often I would go and play in the forest with friends or by myself, always within relative sight of the house. My parents always warned me never to go too far in, outside the view of the house or yard. The first and last time I decided to disobey and go beyond the trail, I will never forget. At the end of the trail, the tree cover was much thicker, unmanaged, and heavily shaded from the sun above. Wandering in a bit, it soon became quiet and eerie. When I looked around, I caught a glint of what looked like bright white eyes in the distance. I felt a chill down my spine and turned away, sprinting as hard and fast as my legs could carry me. Arriving back at the house, I slammed and locked the door behind me. My mother asked me what happened with a worried look. I told her what happened and she grounded me to my room. Later that night, bored and still a bit shaken by what I saw, I couldn't sleep. Oh no! Suddenly, I heard scratching outside of the house, closing in on my room on the second floor. And then silence. Nope, I'm noping out. That's so scary. Moments later, my father came to my room. Upon opening the door, he glanced at the window and then no. Wait, this is actually giving me cold chills right now. This one's getting me. Absolutely not. I don't like this. Oh my gosh. He glanced at the window and then stared at me, his face a pale white and breathing heavy. It felt like an eternity as he was watching me before a heavy exhale and leaving my room. The next day he said, "We're moving out." When I turned 21, he finally answered me as to what happened that night. He told me I was so afraid and didn't know what to do. That thing outside of your window was not of this world, and I have no intention of ever finding out what it was or why it was there. He then proceeded to finish his bottle of whiskey, and we never spoke of it since. Nope. Absolutely not. I would move too. Actual based decision. Just leave. I don't even believe in ghosts, and I would leave. I would literally leave. No. Absolutely not. That's horrifying. Ooh, I hate that. I hate that. It gives you that feeling when like you see someone and they're like looking at something behind you, you know, and they get like this look on your face and you're like, what is it? Is it a spider? Is someone coming up? Like, you know that they see something behind you, but you don't know what it is. Don't enjoy that. No, that's scary. I don't like that. I'm glad you guys moved away because that's a big NO from Runie. No. All right, let's see. Hopefully this one won't be as scary. Ooh, that gave me cold chills. Okay, optional triangle. It was the middle of the day. I was finally alone for the first time since I had arrived in town. I had been staying with relatives of mine to save money on travel costs. They were always happy to see me, and their house was quite cozy. The only thing that gave me pause was the collection of antique dolls they had placed in their living room. There were about a dozen of them, each a foot tall, each a different person. Their wooden smiles and plastic eyes stared right into you. I was resting in the living room until my hunger got the better of me. I walked into the kitchen, got a snack, then returned to the living room to find one of the dolls almost a foot away from the rest of the collection, its face staring right at me. I figured that it must have been moved earlier in the day, so I put it back and continued resting. An hour passed and I heard a knock at the door. I checked. Nobody was there. As I returned, 3 dolls were now out of place, each a couple feet away from the pile. I decided to leave them alone and go upstairs, locking myself in my room. Yup. Another hour passed and I heard a knock at my room's door. Nope, don't open that. I prayed it was my relatives, but when I checked, nobody was there except for one of the dolls. I grabbed the doll. I grabbed the doll and went to return it to the others, but before I could make my way downstairs, the dolls were all gathered at the bottom of the stairs. Each one was looking at me, smiling. I hastily got my stuff and cut my vacation short. My relatives later called me asking why I messed up their doll collection. I had no good answer. Dude, I would have woken them up. You're so polite, because I would have woken my relatives up and been like, you gotta see this. Get the camera out. Like, literally start filming. Here, this is how you deal with a ghost. Because here's the thing, is we don't have clear footage. Clear 100% true footage of a ghost yet. In this year of 2024, right? So my theory is that if you just put up cameras, they'll stop doing stuff. Like if they know it's gonna be on film, they're just not gonna do it. So what I would have done is I would have set up cameras. And then those dolls wouldn't have moved an inch. Terrified for their lives, okay? Foolproof plan. Foolproof. I'm coming up with this on the spot, but I actually really like this idea. I think that you can stop all hauntings with this one simple trick. Put down equipment that would give you empirical evidence of the existence of an afterlife or the supernatural, and then it just won't happen. Now you're safe. You're safe for the rest of time. Like, my brain is working right now. All right, we're on 37 out of 44. This was submitted by Runie fan 666. I don't think this is a scary story or whatever, but I think it's interesting and it fits the theme. Anyway, the story goes like this. My mom loved horror and the stories about supernatural and such. She would watch every horror movie and read the stories. Sometimes she would tell me about articles she found. They were mostly related to ghosts or the paranormal. She wanted to believe them, but like me, she always found some rational explanation for why a certain thing happened. For example, when my grandpa died, her father, On the day that we buried him, we were all gathered in a living room. Nothing happened until we held a minute of silence. Then, out of the blue, his picture fell on the ground. Everyone but my mom screamed. She was the only one who said that it was likely, since the picture was taken on and off the wall so much, that someone just didn't fit it back properly. By the way, my aunt still believes that he visited us that night, and she's not nearly as invested in the paranormal as my mom was. I'm with your mom though. That's me behavior. I would have been like, listen, we've been moving the picture all day. Out of all the pictures on the wall right now, if one was gonna fall, it was gonna be this one. Right? I would do the exact same thing. Moving on, I remember one of the stories that she told me was about a house that burned down when she was a kid. She said that before they moved to our current home, they lived in a village, but not a small one. Houses were right by each other. They knew the neighbors well enough to entrust the kids onto them if they needed to go somewhere for a day or two. One of the neighbors was an older lady in her late 50s that didn't have any kids anymore, as they had both died in shootings after World War II, a common thing in Yugoslavia at the time. My mom didn't like her, as she thought she was weird, and she always wore black clothes and had 2 flowers in her hair, one on each side of the head. Okay, I think she sounds cool. Anyway, I think it was my grandparents' anniversary or something, which made them leave the kids home in the care of said neighbors. Only that the neighbors that were supposed to watch them also had an emergency and needed to go, which meant that my mom and aunt went to this lady for 2 nights. My mom said that while she didn't do anything wrong, the lady was strict and would not allow them to enter certain rooms, only the kitchen and their bedroom. Everything else was off limits. My mom was a few years older than my aunt, who doesn't remember the events, but she does remember the lady. My mom also said that on the first night, she saw the lady put them to bed before leaving the room and closing the door. It was black and she couldn't see anything, but there was a crack under the door and she saw the lady was moving from the kitchen to the basement door a lot. According to her, she made 5 trips in each direction. My mom was scared, so she couldn't fall asleep. She didn't know how long it was, but she remembered that a while later she could smell something burning. After that, she fell asleep. The next day was similar, only that this time my mom heard the lady talking to someone downstairs. She didn't go out of the room to investigate, as she was afraid she was going to get beaten for disobeying. Nothing more happened, and the next day around noon, my grandparents picked them up. My mom was curious as to what the lady was doing, so she talked to the other kids that she hung out with. The older kids were joking that she was working for UDBA, Yugo Secret Service. Others, that she was a witch. Nobody really believed those things, but for my mom, who was 7 at the time, it was scary. She started avoiding the lady's house as much as she could. This went on for a few years until one day in the middle of the night she woke up and heard people screaming. She ran out and saw my grandma holding my aunt as there was a fire down the street where the lady lived. The fire was apparently so strong that even though all of the men in the village helped, they couldn't put it out. The house burned down fast, as it was mostly made out of wood. The only surviving piece was the new section, which was built from cement, and what was supposed to be an extension for her kids to live there with their families. But it wasn't built fully. What was weird was that the police didn't recover the body. My mom, as a lot of people, helped clear the rubble. It took them about 2 weeks as it rained a bit in between, but they never found anything. She remembers that the lady was buried in the family grave, but there was no casket. They just went to the grave and the priest said a prayer. It was over very quickly. My grandparents also never said anything about her to her or to my aunt. Sadly, both of my grandparents died before I could ask them about it. Another strange thing happened, as my mom said, that one day a group of men gathered and started to dig up the site where the house was. They dug a huge hole, which they then filled with cement. My grandma told her that they were going to build a playground, but nothing came of it. The only thing they ensured was that nothing was going to be built there. There were also little things such as a boy that used to play with my mom and aunt that would disappear one day without a word. His whole family was gone, and nobody seemed to know anything about it. My mom later found the boy on Facebook, and they became friends again. He moved away because his dad got a job in the city. The same thing happened to a few other families. What my mom found interesting was the families were the same ones from which the men dug the hole. And the story was always the same. They went to the city because of a job. A few years later, my mom and aunt followed as both grandma and grandpa got good jobs near where I live now. Huh. I did check the village on Google Maps, but it looks mostly deserted as of 2019 when the latest images are from. I'm also not 100% sure I'm looking at the right village. Anyway, like I said, this isn't a scary story, just a weird one. I also remember one story about my grandma when she was a child and she was home alone and she heard a knock on the door only to see a strange man with a suitcase there. He didn't speak, just stared at her. She ran away, but the man remained and stood there just watching her. When she came back with a few neighbors, they saw him slowly walking around the house. When they caught him, he was gone, except there was no way he could have gone anywhere as there was a stream blocking access to the other side of the road. There was also nothing in which he could have hidden, nor any trees. He simply vanished. The story became common around the village, so much so that the men formed a nightly watch ground which patrolled the village. They never caught the man, despite almost everyone having seen him at least once. My grandma also said that they usually saw him when someone or something died the next day, like people or animals, sometimes flowers and crops. Anyways, that's it from me and my English second language story. You wrote very, very, very well. I hope my sentence structures aren't too painful. It was not painful at all. And if they are, consider yourself rused. No, that was a wonderful story. I like stories like that. It doesn't always have to be, a picture perfect beginning, middle, and end to be a good story, because that's just not always how life works out, So I really enjoyed that. Very interesting. Much for my brain to chew on. Next, we have a story from Dark the Gamer. The friend I thought I had. I'm writing this now to atone for sins I didn't commit. It wasn't supposed to be like this. It was supposed to be different. Instead, he stole everything from me. Everything I wanted or needed, he took with that disgusting look on his face, as if he had done nothing wrong. It sickened me. It wasn't always like this. We were good friends once, believe it or not. Childhood friends, in fact. He went to the same school, the same classes, the same clubs. We lived in the same neighborhood. Our houses were only 1,000 feet apart, walking distance. We met because our mothers knew each other, and since we were the same age, it wasn't odd that they wanted us to meet. We did, at my 8th birthday party. I was playing in the ball pit my dad had made for me a week earlier as an early birthday present. I was in it, paying no attention to the people outside. I didn't know half of them anyway. Most were Mom's coworkers, probably invited, so it wouldn't be just the 3 of us. I wasn't very social at school. I would just sit by myself at lunch. It didn't bother me. Socializing scared me, and I found it hard to connect to people for the first time. It always seemed like the people I wanted to befriend were busy. Looking back, I should have made the first move. As I was hiding in the ball pit, I heard the rustle of balls, signaling someone had come inside. I peeked my head out of the pit to look, but I didn't see anything. I thought it was just my imagination. Then I felt something grab my legs, and I went under to see the face of a kid who looked my age. "Hello," I said, still startled for being pulled down by my feet. He didn't say anything at first, just stared into my eyes, making me uncomfortable. "Hello?" He screamed at me for no reason, causing me to cover my ears. He let go of my legs and quickly rose to the top of the ball pit, where he met me again. "What's your name?" he asked, still staring at me with his beaming eyes. Matthew," I replied. He extended his hand in a handshake, and I looked at him, confused, as if to ask, "What is this?" "Want to be friends, Matt?" I guess we were on nickname basis now, I thought. Sure. "What's your name?" I asked, shaking his hand. "I'm Nathan." And that's how I met my first friend, Nathaniel. When I entered high school, I was placed in the same class as Nate. He became really popular with the ladies, while I, as usual, blended into the background. Sometimes it felt like people didn't even know I existed, except for Nate, the only one who cared enough to talk to me. The moments we spent talking and laughing together were the highlights of my day. One day I got a text from Nate asking if I wanted to hang out. Since I didn't have much to do, I said yes. Later that night, I arrived at a brick building that was half torn down and looked like it was on the verge of collapse. I walked inside, looking around for him, but saw nothing. I called out his name, but there was no reply. I even tried calling his phone, but he didn't answer. You have to be kidding me, I thought, assuming this was some kind of joke. I started to leave when I heard a noise from my right. I turned and saw a slightly open door. For some reason, I felt an urge to walk toward it. When I reached the door, a light breeze brushed against my hand as I pushed it open wider. As I did, a foul stench hit me like a train, something I had never smelled before. Covering my nose and mouth, I fully opened the door. On the other side, there was a window where the moonlight shone through, providing the only light in the room. I cautiously stepped inside, but immediately tripped over something, falling face first onto the ground. Instead of a thud, I landed with a squelch in some kind of liquid. It was too dark for me to make out what it was, but as the clouds shifted, allowing more moonlight to fill the room, I saw it. And what I saw left me speechless. It was something that would change my life forever. The source of the horrible smell was revealed. It was a human head, severed clean from the body. Blood still oozed from the neck, suggesting it had happened recently. Where there was a head, there had to be a body, so I began to looking around. It didn't take long to find it. It was the reason I had fallen in the first place. The sight made me want to vomit. The body, or what was left of it, was lying near my feet. All that remained was the torso, from the shoulders down to the pelvis. The arms and legs were gone, nowhere to be seen. From the features of the head and chest, it seemed to belong to a young female, probably around my age. Still reeling from the shock, I suddenly heard police sirens blaring outside the building, followed by a loud bang. Moments later, flashlights were pointed in my direction. I stood up as fast as I could and tried to hide, but it was too late. I froze when I heard a voice shout, "Freeze!" followed by the distinct sound of guns being drawn. I was caught, and there was nothing I could do but put my hands up. Later that night, I was charged with the murder of Sandra Owens and sentenced to death, all in one night? The girl I was accused of killing turned out to be Nathaniel's girlfriend. The idea that a 16-year-old could be sentenced to death was shocking, but I guess it didn't help that my lawyer seemed high for most of the trial. And it was all in one day? I was screwed from the start, whether I liked it or not. I was going to die for a crime I had stumbled upon. That was set in stone. No, you have years and years, and you get appeals and all kinds of crazy stuff. Each passing day felt like a week, and months felt like years. Time seemed to lose all meaning, but it moved on nonetheless, and the day of my execution— You were really being executed for this? Didn't you have the text message of your friend telling you to go there? But before my time was up, I mean, if he was high, like, you could call for a new attorney, like, you would definitely get a new attorney if you claimed that and they found drugs in his system. Like, I'm going crazy right now. But before my time was up, one last visitor came to meet me. I was guided to the meeting room where I saw who it was. "Long time no see," Nate said. "Likewise," I replied. "How are you calm right now? Why aren't you, like, screaming at this person? Like, why did you text me to go there?" "You've looked better," he said in a sympathetic tone. "Well, there's not much point in staying hygienic when you're going to die," I replied sarcastically, though deep down, I was scared of dying in vain. "So I heard. I never pegged you as a killer. My girlfriend, of all people. You monster. Have you guys not had a single conversation since this happened? I didn't do it. I couldn't hurt a fly. This justice system is rigged. I know you didn't do it. Okay, they filmed these. This is recorded. This is recorded. If he's saying this, they're gonna know. If you knew, why didn't you speak out during the trial? Okay, so he was there for the trial. Because then I wouldn't have gotten away with it. Away with what? The perfect crime. Well, you're not getting away with it now, buddy. What do you mean, the perfect crime? In order to get away with the murder of my cheating girlfriend, I needed a fall guy. And seeing how you never seemed to get noticed by others, you seemed like the perfect fit. Friend or not, my rage for her outweighed a fake friendship. Okay, so not friend. What do you mean friend or not? So not friend. So I called you over and made a noise to draw you in while I escaped from the back. This guy. You bastard. How could you do this to me? Because you were so desperate for a friend, you never even noticed you were being set up. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have another date to attend to. Enjoy the rest of your life. Wait, come back here, you piece of sh... I was cut off by a guard. A guard who just entered the room and was not listening to anything that just happened. He covered my mouth before I could finish what I was going to say. I was handcuffed and escorted away. I looked back at Nate, and all he did was smile ear to ear. I arrived at the electric chair. What year is this? And forced by 2 guards to sit in it, tied down tightly. Any last words? A guard asked, his hand on the lever, ready to pull. All of you can burn in hell, I said, anger dripping from my voice. Pull it. That was the last thing I heard before everything went dark. The end. From Dark the Gamer. Thank you very much for your story. That was fun. my brain trying to make sense of this. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you. You wrote a whole short story. That's awesome. I really appreciate it. The friend I thought I had. Yeah, not a very good friend. Not a very good friend at all. All right, so I actually have to go and do a stream soon. So I think I can read one more story and then I'll come back and record the rest of the stories and then I'll just splice it together. Really, I didn't even have to tell you I was doing this, but I did anyways. This is from Anonymous. Runie was haunted by Piranha for the rest of her life. The end. Piranha, you wouldn't do that to me, right? Yeah. She wouldn't do that to me. She wouldn't do that to me. Okay, that one was really short, so we'll do one more. Oh, this one's kind of long though. Okay, actually, yeah, I'll read. I have 5 more. So actually, no, I'll read this. Do I think I can squeeze them in? Let me see how long the other ones are. Do I have time? Oh, I'd like to do it in one take if I can. Maybe I can. Here, I'll read fast. I'm gonna read like really fast. We're gonna speed read these. I don't like living here, I said to myself, the cold winter morning making me think twice about getting out of bed. It's been 3 months since I moved from the sunny beaches of Southern California to my new home in this small town in the remote interior of Alaska. Ew, horrible decision. I was hesitant to uproot my life, a life I loved so much, but my sister needed me. Ever since we were children, she had dreamt of opening her own hotel, and now that dream had finally come true, and she was struggling. I threw on a pair of pants, a hoodie, my winter jacket, and my boots. My phone rings. Hello? It was my sister. Hey, sleepyhead, are you coming back to work? Anna, I'd already be there if you hadn't called, I replied, trying to hide my irritation. Click. The line goes silent. I sigh. I open the door to my room and walk down the stairs to the reception desk. Anna grins at me and points to the corner without saying a word. Propped in the corner of the entrance is an old mop bucket, freshly filled and ready to go. "Can you please mop the dining room?" she asked, still grinning ear from ear. "Sure," I mumbled, already walking to grab the mop and bucket. I slowly pushed the mop towards the dining room, half out of protest and half out of sheer exhaustion. I haven't been sleeping well since I moved here. It's cold and it's dark, and there's something creepy about this old hotel, a relic of frontier town that now doubles as a tourist trap. I opened the French doors to the dining room and pushed the mop bucket in before closing them behind me. The dining room was dimly lit, shadows clinging to the corners like they didn't want to let go. The large windows were frosted over, a cold draft seeping through despite the thick curtains. I glanced around. The room felt wrong. Maybe it was just the old wooden beams creaking or the way the light flickered, but I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling creeping up my spine. I dipped the mop into the soapy water and started on the far side of the room, dragging the mop across the floor in slow, deliberate strokes. The rhythm helped me focus, drown out the eerie silence. Thud. I froze. The sound had come from the ceiling, like something heavy had dropped above me. I glanced up at the dark wooden rafters, my heart beginning to race. The second floor. The guest rooms were empty, save for a couple in the far wing of the hotel. No one should be up there. Thud. Thud. This time it was louder, closer, like footsteps. "Anna?" I called out, my voice shaking. There was no answer. I dropped the mop, its handle clattering against the floor, and made my way back to the French doors. They wouldn't open. I pulled harder, my breath quickening as panic set in. They were locked. Thud, thud, thud. The footsteps were directly above me now, pacing back and forth, slow and deliberate. Then they stopped. Silence stretched on for what felt like hours, but I knew it was only seconds. My ears strained, listening for the faintest hint of movement. Suddenly, the lights flickered again, this time plunging the entire room into darkness. I fumbled for my phone, desperate for some light. When I turned it on, the dim glow illuminated the immediate space around me. And that's when I saw it. A shadow in the far corner of the dining room. It wasn't there before. It didn't move, but it was watching me. I could feel its eyes, or whatever passed for them, boring into me, cold and menacing. My breath caught in my throat. "Who's there?" I whispered, barely able to speak. The shadow didn't answer. Instead, it began to shift, almost like it was growing. Its form stretched upwards, towering over the chairs and tables, spilling out into the room like ink spreading across paper. And then, with a sickening creak, the French doors behind me slowly opened on their own. I didn't wait. I bolted through the door, stumbling back into the lobby, my heart pounding in my chest. Anna was at the reception desk, her back to me, calmly flipping through paperwork like nothing had happened. "Anna!" I gasped, trying to catch my breath. She turned slowly, her face pale, but she didn't look surprised. She didn't look scared. "Was it in the dining room?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. I nodded, confused. She sighed, rubbing her temples. "I hoped it wouldn't start again so soon." "What do you mean again?" I demanded, my voice rising in panic. She looked at me, her eyes tired, full of an unspoken sadness. "There's a reason the hotel was so cheap, you know. A reason it's always cold. There's something in this place. It's been here before I bought it. Sometimes it's quiet and sometimes it isn't." I stared at her, my mind racing, trying to piece together what she was saying. "What are you talking about?" She leaned in closer, her voice trembling. "It doesn't want us here." Just then, the lights in the lobby flickered again, and the temperature dropped so quickly I could see my breath in the air. A deep, guttural sound echoed from the dining room behind me. And that's when I knew. Whatever was in this hotel wasn't going to leave us alone. From Snack. Ooh, I want to read this book. I need you to write this entire book so that I can read it. I would very much so like to read it. And also, I would very much so like to finish this in one take, but I'm being beckoned towards a collab stream, so I do have to take a pause here. But I will come back and finish this recording. Yeah, I'll be right back. You guys won't even know because it's just gonna be like a splice cut, and I'm gonna make it so natural. I'm gonna make this cut so natural that you wouldn't even know that I was cutting it unless I told you. Like, you're only gonna know that I cut it because I told you that I cut it. You guys aren't even gonna realize, like, that's how smooth this freaking cut is about to be. Our next story was submitted by Rare Secrets. In the town of Blowing Rock, North Carolina, there is a hotel called the Green Park Inn that is known to be haunted. A friend of mine worked there during third shift and often called me in distress to deal with what he'd experienced. What I write are all his accounts. The story of the Green Park Inn is tragic. Trigger warning, self-harm. Back when the hotel was first built, it was a majorly popular attraction for honeymoon trips due to the scenic nature of the town. One day, a poor bride was stood up at the altar by her husband. Distraught, she quickly returned to the hotel in shambles. She was later found hanging from a noose in her room. Many months after this tragic incident, the was-to-be husband returns to the Green Park Inn to pay his respects, or so he said. He booked the same room as the woman he stood up that day and took his own life in the same way that she did. Ever since, visitors and workers within the Green Park Inn experienced supernatural phenomena. My friend took up a third shift at this place. Certainly he's crazy, but he claimed not to believe in ghosts. Soon after becoming employed, that outlook changed drastically. Creeping shadows, loud noises, doors unlocking themselves, doors opening and closing. His daily duties to check the halls became a sprint to the finish line to get back to the front desk. Finally, it all culminated in a scenario that eventually caused him to leave his job. He fell asleep at the front desk as it was early in the morning, likely between 2 and 4 a.m. He had an odd dream about a young boy and young girl running through the hotel playing games and causing a ruckus. He said the dream felt almost lucid, like he was there watching them. Eventually, he's awakened by the bell being rung in front of him. He startles awake and sees 2 fearful hotel visitors standing before him. They claim they were asleep in bed when they heard what sounded like giggling from children. They sat in their beds, somewhat startled and wondering what was going on when the sheets were yanked off of them and the wife swears she saw 2 young children at the foot of the bed. My friend asks the wife to describe the children she saw, and they exactly matched the children from his dreams. Soon after, he quit working at the Green Park Inn. You know what that makes me think of? There's a word for it, but I can't remember what it is. People believe that sometimes, especially younger people, like kids and teenagers, can manifest things because they just have like high energy, and like their beliefs and thoughts can like manifest like apparitions or visions or whatever. You guys probably know what I'm talking about. At least one of you knows what I'm talking about. I want to say a tulpa, but that feels wrong now. Maybe that's right. Tulpa? I could Google it, but I'm not going to. You Google it. You Google it and tell me in the comments if I'm right or wrong. But maybe because your friend was already so freaked out and clearly thought the place was very spooky, and I'm guessing was pretty young at the time. Maybe he created a tulpa that then haunted that poor couple. So really, it's his fault. Wouldn't you know it? Next, we have a story from 442nd ATT. Let's start with a bit of background. This all happened some years back. I lived in a small town off the highway. I was taking a year to decide what I wanted to do after school. During this time, I worked at a local restaurant in the part of town right by the interstate. The place was built out of an old Russell Stover store and had some decent diner-type food. It was just me, the cook Robert, and our boss, the owner, Eugene, who worked there. Robert was a nice guy who enjoyed his job and was always in a good mood. We ended up calling him Bob for short. He contrasted my grumpy, pessimistic view on life I had at the time. Then there was our boss, Eugene, who was an older Navy vet. He cared about profit a bit too much at times, but he treated us right, better than most bosses do. Nothing out of the ordinary happened when I worked there until I was asked to work the night shift. Eugene wanted to start working later to catch the late night crowd, but didn't have any dedicated nighttime employees yet, so he asked Bob and me to work longer with the promise of extra pay. I wasn't thrilled about it, but double my wage wasn't something I could whine about. My shift ended at 2 a.m. and I was given the keys to lock up while Eugene went home at a regular time. So he just left, you guys? Dang, cold, Eugene, that's cold. I mean, I guess he was paying you double, but man. My first few nights weren't anything too notable. That was until the 5th night. It was midnight and it was dead quiet in the store. I was sitting behind the register reading a pirated ebook on my tablet while Bob mopped out front. "Hey Edward, you know what's great about the night shift?" he asked me. "Nothing," I answered, my eyes not leaving my ebook. Before Bob could say anything else, the lights went out. Now the only light was the dim white light from my tablet on my face. "I'll go find the breaker," I said, annoyed. I held my tablet above my head and used it as a light to guide my way to the back. It was in the very back of the building. As I went to flip the breaker, everything turned back on, as if it never went off in the first place. I looked at the breaker. Everything looked fine with it, so I headed back. When I came back to the dining area, I saw an odd shadow above Bob as he stood at the mop. As I stepped in, it seemed to evaporate in the blink of an eye. "Hey Bob, did you see that?" I asked him. "See what?" he asked back, and his face was all I needed to know my answer. I walked back to the register. "I thought I saw something, but it's not there anymore." He laughed. "Good one, Edward," trying to spook me. I faked a chuckle and stuck my nose back in my book to get my mind off what I saw. "Oh man, I wish you'd included maybe your thoughts. I'm curious if you have any hypotheses over what you think it could be. I want to know what you think maybe it is that you maybe saw. But that would be spooky. Having the lights go off on you at any point is, when you're not expecting it, is always whew. Very easy way to get a jump scare. Hear that? Jump scare, not pop scare. I said jump. Can't talk anymore. I said jump scare. And then I lost the ability to speak, so maybe I should just keep saying pop scare. Next we have a story from Zuda, titled Runie's Worst Nightmare. Okay. Evil woman, sexy and mature. Resist her Hold on, I'm starting over. Evil woman, sexy and mature. Resist her charms. Lunatics endure. Yeah, right. You see, it's just a ruse. A truth she can't refuse. She's a normie, mindful and demure. Warng! Next. This is our last story, and it is from Anon K. Back in 2010, my brother and I would ride the school bus home to rural Georgia. The bus ride was long, about an hour and a half, and we were always one of the last stops. The bus would drop us off at the entrance of our gravel driveway, right at the edge of the woods. From there, the driveway wound through the trees leading up to our house, which was completely hidden from the main road. Once we started walking, it was just us, the trees, and the crunch of gravel underfoot. This story takes place on that driveway. One Monday, everything started with ice cream truck music. We were sitting on the bus, almost home, when I began to hear it, a tune that sounded like it came from an ice cream truck, but it was off. The music was distorted, broken, almost eerie. Now keep in mind, we lived in the middle of nowhere, and I had never once heard an ice cream truck anywhere near our home, let alone one playing such warped music. As the bus came to a stop at our driveway, my brother and I got off, both commenting that maybe one of the strange neighbors down the road was up to something weird. It wouldn't have been the first time. But as we started walking up the driveway, something strange happened. The music seemed closer, coming through the trees. And then we heard it. Children laughing. For some reason, my brother and I decided to investigate. Because you wanted ice cream, that's why. We stepped off the driveway and into the woods, following the sounds until we reached a small clearing, not far from the road. The laughter surrounded us, echoing from all sides. Then I heard it. Come play with us. Huh? I froze. My brother and I exchanged a look, and without a word, we bolted back to the driveway. As we ran, the music and laughter seemed to chase us, getting louder and closer with every step. It felt like it was right on top of us as we sprinted up to the house, slammed the door, and locked it behind us. The moment the door shut, the sounds disappeared. The eerie music, the children's laughter, everything was gone, just like that. Over the years, nothing like this ever happened again, but I did hear stories from my grandmother about an old schoolhouse that had burned down on what's now our property. No one had died in the fire, but I always wondered if the story was connected to what we experienced that day. Just recently, I spoke to my brother to make sure I remembered everything right. He agreed with the whole story, except for one thing. He said the voice didn't call for me. It called for him. Maybe it did both, man. You heard it one way and then it was speaking in your heads, man. What? That's crazy. That's a very unique story. I've never heard anything like that. And I've heard a lot of ghost stories. Wow. Dang. Wouldn't it have been cool though if there just had been an ice cream truck in the middle of the woods and they were giving out like free ice cream? And then you like ate the ice cream and then nothing bad happened because none of that is sketchy at all. I figure since I've read all of y'all's stories that I can give you guys a ghost story of my own. I don't think I've ever told this one before, but when I was at university, my roommate, which I think I have told a story about her before, this is the same roommate whose grandma said that she wasn't proud of her when we tried the Ouija board. And then she cried a whole bunch. It's that friend. So she considered herself to be psychic, and really felt like she could sense like energies and spirits and things like that. So every now and again, like she would bring up things. And one time we were in this, like, I don't know what you would call it. The bottom floor, it was like one of those buildings where like it was built on a slope, so the bottom floor was like kind of a basement and kind of not a basement because one half of it was like underground and the other wasn't. I hope that makes sense. Anyways, the very bottom floor, there was this huge like lobby area that just had like a bunch of tables and chairs. It was a really, really big area that was kind of separated into like 3 rooms. And people would study down there sometimes, and we were down there studying. It was pretty late and it was just us down there, and we were off to like the right side room, and in the center room there was this giant portrait of somebody. I don't know, like big portrait, like if this thing fell off the wall it would kill you portrait. Huge portrait that was on the wall in there. But that was, you couldn't see it from where we were sitting because each little like of the 3 rooms of this like big lobby area were kind of like separated by like walls. But like not wall, like it wasn't, you guys know what I'm talking about? Like there were like entryways to them that were open, but there were walls in between them with like these big entryways. So like where we were sitting, we could see the entryway, but you couldn't see really through the entryway into that room. I don't know if that makes sense. Anyways, we were sitting there studying, and then all of a sudden my roommate was like, I'm getting a really horrible feeling. I think we should go. And I was like, what? She was like, I really think we should go back to our dorm. I just have this terrible feeling, horrible feeling. I'm so uncomfortable. We should go. And in retrospect, this was very bratty of me. I probably would not do this as the much more mature adult that I am now. But I was feeling a little bratty back then. And as you guys know, I don't really believe in this kind of stuff. So I was like, no, like, oh, it's nothing. Like, you're being silly. Like, we should just, you can go, but I'm gonna stay here. And she was like, no, Runie, I think you have to come with me. Like, we really gotta go. Like, she was too scared to even go up to the dorm by herself or to leave me there. And as this is going on, all of a sudden we hear this like weird noise, like furniture moving, but like slightly from that room that we can't look into. So like the room over. And she's freaking out. She's like, oh my gosh, like we gotta go. And of course I'm still being a brat. So I'm like, let's go look at it. So we go and we peeked into the other room, and that big painting that was on the wall was like moving. Not like very barely, and making like a scratching noise on the wall. And like I said, it was such a big painting that like I don't know how it could have moved like that. But also it was like little micro movements too. Like it's not like it was like really going crazy. It was just like a little slight movement. Like maybe even I was just like associating, our brains are really good at like filling in gaps, which can be great sometimes and can be really not great other times. So I feel like it's probably one of those situations where it was like I heard the noise and then my brain just like filled in the gap and made me think that the painting was moving, but it wasn't. But that is how I perceived it. It did seem like the painting was like shaking a little bit. Anyways, we like ran out of there. But I think about that sometimes. I should have just gone when she wanted to go. It was very bratty of me. But yeah, that's a little story of my own. So, yay! Thank you guys so much for joining me for part 2 of reading your ghost stories. I had a lot of fun reading these submissions. Thank you guys for 44 amazing submissions. I look forward to doing something else like this in the future because clearly you guys got some writing skills. Very enjoyable to read. I also enjoyed the poems as well. Very much so. So thank you. And I hope you're having a wonderful holiday season as well. And I will see you guys when I get back from my holiday travels. But for now, it's bittersweet. But I must say farewell. Give glory to the runes, for my love and affection is forever with you, even in death. Okay, bye-bye.